Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. And today we have another rough country install. This is a simple one. It doesn't necessarily have to be rough country. We are using the rough country 2-inch wheel spacers. So that's right. That brings me to my next point that I got to wash my hands. No, I'm just kidding. Is wheel spacers. What we're going to do today is talk about wheel spacers. Not just like why would you use wheel spacers? Well, for instance, if you wanted more of an aggressive stance, you didn't have an aftermarket wheel with a lot of offset or anything like that, so you wanted to take your factory wheel and get it a little bit more aggressive of a look. You needed more stability for towing. There's a various reasons. Most of them is aesthetics. It's for looks, why you'd want to use wheel spacers. Let me show you what we got for wheel spacers from Rough Country. Then we'll talk a little bit about how they go on, why you know, just everything about them. All right, Steve just set it on. We're going to talk about, I guess, the wheel spacers themselves. This is a 2-inch. So a 2-inch wheel spacer is the thickness right here and how much your wheel is going to stick out from your truck. 2 inch is a fair amount. When you get into under 2-inch, like 1.5 inch, 1-inch wheel spacer, what you got to be careful of is your factory stud sometimes will be sticking beyond the surface. So for what I'm saying is, if this was 1 inch thick, that stud may be sticking out beyond the spacer and you could run into an issue when you go to mount your wheel. So some different things you need to think about. If you were going to use a thinner or smaller spacer, you may have to cut some of your factory stud back to keep them below that level. Now, as far as when someone says it's hub-centric or wheel-centric, what it is they're talking about this. If this wheel spacer was tight to the hub and it was tapered and it fit right hard against the hub, this would be considered a hub-centric wheel spacer. Instead, it gets its center. I mean, it is fairly tight to the hub, but it gets centered on the lug nuts themselves. So the lug nuts themselves will get these things centered up for you. So this one, usually it's very obvious, is almost hub-centric and lug-centric because the hub is big enough where it does kind of sit on a machine surface there, where you would say hub-centric, which some people claim is better than lug-centric, which means the spacer gets centered from your lug nuts themselves. But regardless, I just wanted to explain to you like hub-centric versus wheel, or the spacer is centered by the lug studs themselves. But what you're going to want to do is what I'm going to do is we're going to take these nuts off and they're going to hold the spacer on here. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about your mating surface. Now your mating surface here, you got to make sure, and this rotor is not very old, so it's very clean. Some rotors will have clips on them that hold the rotor on, factory clips, and you have to remove all those clips or your wheel spacer won't sit flush and you're going to end up with a vibration or a loose wheel or anything else like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these lug nuts and we're going to bolt the spacer on with those lug nuts so we can use our factory wheel lug nuts on those because we have center caps that clip onto those. All right, Steve is setting the spacer on the truck and he's gonna start winding down the lug nuts. Again, you got to make sure this mating surface is clean. If you got rust, you got to scale it, wire wheel it, whatever you got to do. Make sure you get rid of those clips if there's any clips on the brakes themselves. It is very important. Next step, you're going to go ahead and put the wheel spacer on the truck itself. When you go to put the lug nuts on, some manufacturers will have you put a little dab of Loctite on that stud. Some do not. So that's kind of like, I don't want to say it's right or it's wrong, but I don't think it's a bad thing with a dab of Loctite. Just don't overdo it, because in case you did want to take these things off. When you go to torque them on, you're going to torque the wheel spacer on to your manufacturer's wheel torque. This Dodge, I think, I got to look it up, is around 140 foot-pounds. I'll look it up and confirm. We're going to go ahead and torque these wheel spacers themselves down. He's saying no. Why are you saying no?
I'm just kidding. No way.
Yeah, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So we're going to torque the wheel spacers down, and then the wheels themselves, they get torqued down again to the same amount. I have grease on my face, too. I'm a mess. So I was close. It's 135 foot-pounds. A couple other things worth mentioning here is, and I know this seems self-explanatory, but make sure your lug nuts are on properly. Tapered end goes into the wheel spacer itself, much like a lug nut. And I'm sorry I have to say that, but sometimes you do have to say it. The second thing would be these wheel spacers, they come in all different sizes, meaning bolt patterns, 8 lug, 6 lug, the spacing between the bolt patterns. So make sure that you get them for your specific vehicle. So that's worth mentioning. I thought of one more thing with these wheel spacers, and that is the fact that when I was talking about hub-centric and wheel-centric, as far as how the spacer centers on the axle itself, one big thing is, like I said, if it's wheel-centric, it's centering on the lug studs themselves. If it's hub-centric, it's centering around the center hub themselves. Now, with that being said, at the end of the day, as long as this thing centers itself, your wheel's going to spin true and not have vibrations. Some of your cheaper wheel spacers and stuff like that, I've seen them warped. I've seen them so lugs stretch. So go with a reputable brand, a reputable quality like Rough Country. So the other thing you might see on some of these wheel spacers, you may see a flange for a hub-centric mount right to your wheel. And I didn't mention that before. Sometimes there's a flange right in here where that would sit into the recess of your factory wheel or your wheel and further center your wheel. So there's just a couple other things and features about wheel spacers that people don't think about. They just always throw them on. It's super simple. But at the end of the day, they're holding your wheels on, and it's important. All right, so now you got your wheel spacers on. They're snug down. We're going to go ahead and torque these to 135 foot-pounds. That's specific to your vehicle. Again, this is on a Dodge Ram 2500. For this year, it is 135 foot-pounds. Now, a good way to do this is have a buddy sit in the vehicle, push on the brake, and you can go ahead and get these all torqued down just like you would the wheel itself in an alternate star pattern. I like to go around it a couple times, and then they're torqued on, and you're ready for your wheels. All right, wheel spacers are on and torqued. We use the buddy system, and the next step, you're gonna put your wheels back on. You'll kind of see where, like, the wheel used to sit here, now it's gonna sit way out here. Therefore, it was tucked in the fender, and now it won't be, I'm exaggerating, but it would be offset some. All right, they're on the truck, and yeah, we just gotta get them tightened down. We'll be able to see the offset with the 2-inch wheel spacer. All right, guys, there you go. That kind of gives you an idea where the 2-inch wheel spacer will put you. It basically gives you a more aggressive stance, a wider stance, a little more stability with the tires and how far out they sit. And then we do have a center cap that's gonna go on there as well. So with that, I think we'll wrap the video up with this Rough Country, another install video. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it's also very important. Wheel spacers, they serve many different purposes, and they're very common to see them out there. And some guys might not like them, some guys like them. We've run them on various builds for years and have had no issues. So this is Scott Flip and Customize. This is Steve. We want to thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and check out all the Rough Country content. Take care, guys.